Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before I call the meeting to order, I will ask that if you have cell phones or personal devices that you silence them or put them on vibrate. And I will call this land use planning meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. by formally recognizing that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to be good stewards of this land and thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this place for thousands of years. In particular, we acknowledge the proud heritage of our neighbors from the Alderville First Nation and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink, that Council alter the agenda to include a closed session pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)B, a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding the Applefest Committee. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council approve the March 11th, 2019 Council Planning Meeting as amended. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. And I would ask for anyone to declare any pecuniary interest they may have, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor LeBlanc.
The last meeting I declared a conflict of interest for the dog park, and after putting in my submission with the Ethics Commissioner, basically I didn't have one. I just want to say that I took the high road, not the low road. So I did not have a conflict of interest with the dog park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? None noted. We have one delegation this evening from Mrs. Gail Grant of Smith Street regarding a request to sever 3 11-acre parcels of land north end lot 32 concession A. Is Gail here? There you are. Come on up, Gail. Please come up here. And Candace will help you out with that microphone. Mrs. Grant, if you could just identify yourself for the record. Thank you. Proceed.
I want to sever off 3 11-acre parcels of land for my children from the north side of the farm, if that's possible.
So is that your full delegation?
Well, I was just wondering if I could get permission from you guys to go ahead with this, or what your thought on this is.
Have you submitted an application through the planning department?
No, I was told to come here and do this, so I've been in to see Daryl a couple times about it.
Councillor Tadman?
Yes, I've talked to Mrs. Grant, and she's been living on that farm, well, I don't know, probably 50 years or more, and I suggested that she also talk to Daryl, so I don't know if Daryl has any information now or is waiting on a submission. So through you, Mayor, to our planner, maybe Daryl could just speak a little bit about it at this time.
Are you prepared to do that, Mr. Ty?
At the wish of council, yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had a total of, I believe, 4 meetings on this particular matter with Mrs. Grant, where I've attempted to explain the conflict between her proposal and the policies of the official plan, and indeed upper tier planning documents as well. being the provincial policy statement and the growth plan. Also, the northern part of the farm is actually included in the mapped natural heritage area. So I have provided the property owner with the names of various consulting firms who do that kind of work, as well as the contact information for Lower Trent Conservation should there be any desire to pursue their opinions, recommendations directly.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Are there any other questions from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc?
I also know your late husband very well, very close friend of mine. And the thing is, she called me, Tommy, her son called me, Tom, and I went to see Mr. Darrow on 3 occasions to have a meeting about this. Because when we severed off my farm, at that time, we severed off to Mike Vandertoorn at 10.5 acres, which is a farm. I thought that was still in place. Apparently it's changed, and it's not there. And she was told that she would sever 1.5 acres. And after we had the meeting with Daryl, she could sever off 3 lots of 2.5 acres each, and then she could sever a farm to the south and sever another 2.5 acres on the south side of the farm, which would give her 6 things. And so that's where I left it when I left with that. So that's where I was, and I don't know what the rest of the procedure, so I'd have to leave it to the planner from here.
So Mrs. Grant, what you would need to do is make formal application for severance through the planning office. And then that report would come to council, and council then would make a decision on those severances.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Tadman?
Through you, Mayor, and also the planner, Daryl, said there's a couple of things that you probably would have to, and the planner will tell you about the natural heritage part of that property, and all, to get the advice of a consultant firm, and also through Lower Trent for permission if there's any wetlands or anything on that property. So those are probably after you speak with the planner again, to go and seek out a consulting firm, and he would, I'm certain, would help you find that person. So it's...
But is it not possible to sell that property if they don't plan to put building or disturb that heritage? Because it's not all heritage. It's only 40% east side.
Thank you. Very often, part of it is zone 1 way for natural heritage, and then the rest of it would be zoned preferably to what you were seeking. So that's all goes through the planner. And so if you want to continue with this, I would suggest you go back to the planner and get those 2 things taken care of. Make your application, but also get a consultant firm for the natural heritage part of it, and also for Lower Trent, just to have them look it over and see where there is any environmental protection.
I was at Lower Trent, and they said they had nothing to do with that now that it was the province.
Oh. Well, I guess the best thing is to go back, and I'm sure our planner, Mr. Tai, will help you through all of that, Gail.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Ben?
Okay, Gil?
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council received the delegation from Gail Grant, March 11th, 2019, regarding a request to sever 3 11-acre parcels of land off the north end of Lot 32, Concession A, Brighton Township, zoned RU. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council move into the statutory public meeting March 11th, 2018 at 6:40 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Looks like it. So this evening we have a few public meetings regarding consent applications, and in this case, request amendments to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Mr. Tai, this is with regard to application to amend zoning bylaw 140-2002. Consent applications B01 2019, B02 2019, Tom and Meta Vance. The purpose of the public meeting is those file numbers I have just named, Part Lot 23, Concession C, Parts 1 to 3 of Plan 38R-4275, 679 Stony Point Road South. Mr. Tai, would you please tell us by what method and on what date was the notice of the consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications given?
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of the public meeting regarding the proposed consent applications and rezoning were sent via first-class mail on February 15th, 2019 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to all agencies required under the Planning Act. A sign was also erected on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Would you please explain the background regarding these consent applications?
Yes, consent applications B01 219 and B02 219 are each requesting to sever a parcel of land to create a new residential building lot. Together, applications B01 and B02 2019 result in two severed lots and one retained lot. To summarize, the first severed lot would comprise approximately 344 feet of frontage on Stony Point Road South, having a lot area of 2.96 acres. The second severed lot, 195 feet of frontage on Stony Point Road South, 2.96 acres, have been retained 717 feet of road frontage, comprising 10.87 acres.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Would you explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and what it would accomplish?
The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from rural exception 1 to rural residential zone, rural residential exception number 24, and environmental protection. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will have the effect of permitting residential development on the severed and retained lands while also recognizing protecting existing wetlands of the property, inclusive of the 30-meter vegetation protection zone. The proposed rezoning is required as a condition of consent should the council approve the consents.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. And does the owner, applicant, or agent wish to make any comment this evening?
Here.
Right up here.
Hi, my name is Beverly Saunders. I work for EcoView Consulting. I'm the planning consultant on the file.
Welcome, Ms. Saunders.
Thank you. And we appreciate the comments from the planning staff and are just here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent or rezoning applications? Come on up, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Colasanti.
Welcome, Mr. Colasanti.
Thank you. I presently live at 97 Carter Road and have for the last 24 years, but my homestead is still very close to these lands in question, and I currently own 10 acres adjacent to these lands in the Quinte West side. For those of you who don't know, the border of this property is the dividing line between Quinte West and Bright. So I was circulated, and that's how I knew the development was going to happen. So naturally, being from the area as long as I have, and having interest in the lands that my family still own, I've had a couple of concerns, and just quickly talking to Daryl alleviated them, but I would still like to go on record as having the issues. One, of course, was knowing the lands are environmentally protected. As a matter of fact, the entire property is designated a PSW, the provincially significant wetland, which has like a 120-meter setback. So I asked Daryl if an environmental impact study had been completed, and he confirmed that it had. I obviously would be very interested in seeing that sometime. Is that possible?
Through the chair, there was a copy of the complete EIS attached to the planning report, which was in the agenda package.
So that would be available online
Okay,
through our municipal web portal.
thank you. Also, knowing the owners of this property, or lack of, because in the history that I know of, there has been a lot of questions raised as to who owns what, and I'm glad to see it's all been cleared up. And I just want to confirm that all of the parcels involved belong to the same owner.
Can we confirm or deny that, Mr. Tai?
Through the chair again, the application was in the name of Tom and Meta Vance, care of Ecoview Consulting in Peterborough. And beyond that, those applications were commissioned under oath. If there is any further clarification regarding property ownership, I'm not sure whether Ms. Saunders may be able to assist council. However, we could certainly undertake a search of title.
Just push the, yeah, and then the button in front of you to speak. There you go. There you go.
Okay. So as part of the application, we submitted the land registry office materials for all 3 parcels. So what were previously 3 parcels and then were merged on title, and all 3 are registered to the applicants. So that has been demonstrated in the application.
Thank you. And, thank you. And looking at the existing land configuration in the parts, I'm understanding the rezoning. The lands to the south, close to the existing trailer park, obviously at one time must have been zoned commercial. They're taking them back to rural residential. And so I, by the way, have no problem with the residential lots. Michelle and I own the land right next to them and someday hope to build there. But when you rezone back from an RC to a residential, that existing lot currently holds trailers on it. Have there been conditions placed to have those trailers removed?
Mr. Tai?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, the issue of a suspected trailer park was a product of erroneous mapping. The mapping, according to the GIS, was not correct. The existing zone schedules that apply to this property were not correct. We have received confirmation through the applicant's consultant that the trailer park is occupied on lands to the south of this subject property.
So the mapping I have here showing this property is incorrect?
Please.
As a condition of the consent, so we have to do a survey to delineate and demonstrate that it's above that. So that will be submitted as a condition of this consent.
And the last thing I'd like to ask is the rezoning at the north end is utilizing environmental protected zones to be included in the calculations for lot frontage and minimum lot area. And another question that was clarified by Daryl was that is now possible, and that's what has happened in this case. We're very familiar with the properties in the area, so I had no idea that was capable. And because technically you would need an average of 0.4 hectares of clear developable lands on a parcel that isn't affected by anything for septage and other reasons. And that has been cleared?
Sorry.
Mr. Tai?
Yes, again, through the chair. Actually, the approach taken in this rezoning is considered to be contemporary. Most, if not all the bylaws that we work with that are newer than 2002 have taken this approach. And if you only take into consideration the modern day thinking toward environmentally sensitive features, the natural heritage mapping, if we weren't creative in terms of how we approach the question of frontage and area, there would be no development. So the approach taken is that you can incorporate the frontage and the lot area that is zoned EC as part of your overall calculations.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does technically. And if you looked at the zoning maps of this area, you'd wonder how you'd ever achieve that. But that's why I would really appreciate, in the end, if I could have a copy, and you've already told me I can get a hold of the study. Well, I appreciate your time.
And Mr. Colasanti, if for any reason you can't find that online, you can contact the clerk's office, and the clerk will make that information available to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent or rezoning?
I just want to clarify one particular point through you, if possible.
That was made here
Yes.
just now? Please
Yeah.
do. Okay.
So there was just a statement that the whole property was provincially significant wetland, but the environmental impact study demonstrated there's a large portion that is not wetland. And that's the portion that contains the proposed building envelope for each of these lots. So that, and the environmental protection zone will respect a 30-meter buffer on all of the wetlands on the property as well. So just wanted to clarify that.
I'll let you come back up. I just want to make sure there's no one else who wants to speak, Mr. Colasanti. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, come on up.
I try to speak loud enough.
No, our meetings are, I believe you can. I shouldn't have said no. I'm sure you can. Our meetings are recorded though, so.
Okay, I should clarify, you're definitely correct, the 30-meter setback. But on the PSW lands, as you can see clearly, it covers a massive area in that area, right up in all of this area. It basically identifies that an environmental impact study must be done. It doesn't state that you can't utilize or it can go through. It just identifies that an ESI has to happen.
Thank you, sir.
If I made anything incorrectly there, I'm sorry, but that's how it works.
Well, if you have, I'm sure Ms. Saunders or Mr. Tai will let us know. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed consent or rezoning for members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, as you know, we visit every property. And when we went to visit this property, the signs for the rezoning were in front of these properties. They were to the north of the house that is built. So when we were looking at the lots, the sign was to the north, not showing these lots. To the south of the lots. The northern lot, which is right beside the Ducks Unlimited Pond, that floods periodically, and I drive this road quite a bit, and a number of times I've been there, and there's been flooding where that red line is, has gone right straight past and almost to where that house is, depending on the snow, on the drainage and everything. So it leads to something like a floodplain. So when I saw the signage to the south of the house that was there, I figured, well, I was looking at the drawings a little bit fast as I was driving by. I thought that the land was to the north of the house, the south of the house, but the more southern lot, northern lot, would be part of the floodplain, because I've driven the roads a number of times and I've seen that lot flooded. Okay, just to let them know. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from members of council? Councillor Tadman?
I think it's such a good study that you've done, and it was so easy to understand in the end how you came to decide how you were going to get it zoned and the protection, and it's correct that, because I do serve on Lower Trent, that it has to be 30 meters back from the environmental protection. Is that correct? We got two planners here tonight, so. And I just want to comment that Gail, who came ahead of you, this application, this is the type of things that the province insists upon, and once she gets to that point and gets the two things done that is recommended, things move quite quickly. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Does the owner, applicant, or agent, Ms. Saunders, wish to make any final comments?
Just with regards to the flooding, so it's my understanding that Lower Trent Conservation went out to the site to evaluate natural hazards on the property, and we have correspondences saying that they cleared the portion that's proposed for the building envelope as outside of the flood hazard.
Thank you. Mr. Tai, do you have any final comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Lower Trent had requested an EIS, and Cambium Engineering out of Peterborough did what I would consider to be a rather comprehensive EIS. Prior to finalizing that EIS, they met with the planning department to review what the outcome of that study was, and through that EIS they actually determined wetland boundaries, environmentally sensitive features, and the resulting developable area of the property. And that's what in large part shaped EcoView's planning report as a foundation for the proposal. And so, of course, Lower Trent indicated no objections in their circulation of correspondence to the municipality. The county responded. They were circulated regarding the availability of a septic permit. And they reviewed the submission and came back with a rejection because the mapping that they were looking at showed a trailer park on the northern portion of the land. So of course, once you introduce that type of a non-residential use, it becomes an issue with respect to the disposal of sewage. So what we did to accommodate the comments from the county regarding septic is that as a condition of consent, that the applicant satisfy Northumberland County regarding the availability of a septic permit for each of the lots.
And has that been done?
It's a condition of consent.
It is a condition of
It would
consent.
be carried out following the decision of
Very well,
council.
thank you.
Yes.
Does council wish to make a decision on these consent applications this evening? Yes? Does council wish to make a decision at this time on the zoning bylaw amendment application? Yes? I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council receives the report regarding rezoning application Z02-2019 and consent applications B01-2019 and B02-2019 as prepared by the municipal planning consultant, and that Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to applications B01-2019 and B02-2019 subject to the following conditions. 1, that the severed and retained lands of the applications B01-2019 and B02-2019 be rezoned to the satisfaction of the Municipality of Brighton. 2, that the boundary of the Environmental Protection Zone as proposed by the zoning bylaw amendment be physically demarcated. 3, that any requisite approval be granted by the Lower Trent Conservation Authority, inclusive of any agreements required to implement the recommendations outlined in the Scoped Environmental Impact Study as prepared by Cambium Incorporated and dated December 17th, 2018. 4, that cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $1,000 be paid to the Municipality of Brighton. 5, that appropriate entrance permits be obtained from the Municipality of Brighton for the new residential building lots. 6, that confirmation be received from the County of Northumberland that septic permits can be obtained for the installation of private individual sewage systems on each of the retained and severed lots. 7, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped. 8, that a registrable survey for the original lot be prepared illustrating that there is no encroachment of any buildings or structures of the neighboring trailer park, and otherwise that any identified encroachment issues be resolved. 9, that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey for each the severed and retained lots and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. And further, the council enacts a bylaw to rezone certain lands located in Part Lot 23, Concession C, from Rural Exception Number 1 Zone to Rural Exception Number 24 Zone, Rural Residential Zone, and Environmental Protection Zone to satisfy conditions 2I above. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Our next item is a consent application, 39 and 41 Alice Street, David and Jacqueline Arbuckle. The purpose of the statutory public meeting is to request a decision of council for a proposed consent for the following application, being file number B05, 2019. The owners are David and Jacqueline Arbuckle, located at part lots 1, 2, and 3 east of Alice Street, part lot 7 north of Dundas Street, in registered plan 28, 39 and 41 Alice Street. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this consent application?
Through the chair, notice of the consent application was sent by first-class prepaid mail to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property on February 22nd. Notice was also circulated to all agencies as required under the Planning Act. In addition, a signed notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Would you please explain the background regarding this consent application?
This consent application is requesting correction of title, which would serve to sever two residential lots which had become inadvertently merged. Consent application B05-219 of the effect of creating two separate and distinct residential lots as they previously existed. To summarize, the first severed lot having 76 feet of frontage, having a lot area of 0.24 acres. The retained parcel, 60 feet of frontage, and would have an area of 0.17 acres.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Does the owner, applicant, or agent wish to make any comments this evening? I don't see the Arbuckles here. Are there any persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent application? There are none noted. Final opportunity for applicant or owner to make any final comments. None noted. Mr. Ty, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Does council wish to make a decision this evening on this consent application? I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that this report regarding consent application B05 2019 is prepared by the municipal planning consultant be received, and the Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent application B05 2019, subject to the following conditions. 1, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped, and 2, that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Any further questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Our next statutory public meeting is to request a decision of council for 2 proposed consents for the following applications, being B06 2019 and B07 2019. The owners are, is it Uldis or Aldis and Juris Zomers? Uldis and Juris Zomers. Going to make a note there. Thank you for that. The location being part lot 30, concession A, Bon Road. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this consent application given?
Notice of the applications were sent by first-class prepaid mail on February 22nd to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. The notice of the public meeting was also circulated to all commenting ministries and agencies required under the Act. In addition, a signed notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. And would you please explain the background regarding these consent applications?
These consent applications, being two applications, are requesting that a portion of the subject property be severed in order to create two new residential lots. To summarize, B06 219 to be severed would have a frontage of 154.2 feet and a lot area of 1.01 acres. The second consent to sever 177.82 feet frontage and 1.16 acres, leaving this retained parcel of having frontage of approximately 1,170 feet and an area of 28.14 acres.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. And does the owner applicant wish to make any comments? It's a perfectly legitimate answer. Thank you. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent applications? Are none noted? Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no questions. I think it's all taken care of. If they have to complete the natural heritage evaluation, and they get to go.
Very well. Anything else from council? Any final comments from the owner applicant? Thank you. The shaking of the head is the response to the no, just for everyone's edification. Mr. Ty, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision on this consent application?
Yes.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The council receives the report regarding consent applications B06 2019 and B07 2019 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and the council of the municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to applications B06 2019 and B07 2019 subject to the following conditions. 1, that cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $1,000 be paid to the municipality. 2, that a natural heritage evaluation be prepared by a qualified professional in accordance with the requirements of the growth plan of the Greater Golden Horseshoe to the satisfaction of the municipality of Brighton and Lower Trent Conservation Authority. 3, following the completion of the condition 2 above, severed parcels, and if required, the retained parcel be rezoned to the satisfaction of the municipality of Brighton. 4, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped. And 5, that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to refresh everyone, could we, through you to the planner, just explain why cash in lieu of parkland is $1,000 there, and why sometimes we prefer that to having another park to look after?
Mr. Ty, do you wish to answer that question?
The reason for the $1,000 cash in lieu of parkland is the municipality has for some time had an established parkland levy of $500 per lot, and there's 2 lots here, so.
And just to follow through with that, it's nice to have a park in every little neighborhood, but after a while it takes a lot of upkeep, so we have to choose sometimes where we think that suits the best.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on our statutory public meeting is to request a decision of council for proposed consent for the following application, B08, 2019, Uldis and Joris Zomers. Did I do that right this time? All right. Location, part lot 30, concession A, Smith Street. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of this consent application given?
Notice of this application was sent by first-class prepaid mail on February 22nd to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. The notice was also circulated to prescribed ministries and agencies under the Planning Act, as well as a sign being erected on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. And would you please explain the background regarding this consent application?
This consent application is requesting that a portion of the subject property be severed to serve as a lot addition to the adjacent property being 279 Smith Street. So as a result of this proposed application, the receiving lot or the enlarged lot would have a lot frontage of 365 feet and a lot area of 4.87 acres. The retained parcel would have a frontage of 324.96 feet and an area of 4.78 acres.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. And do the owners or applicants wish to make any comments? There are none noted. Are there persons present who have comments or questions regarding the proposed consent application? There are none noted. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed consent from members of council? There are none noted. And final comments from the owner applicant? None noted. Mr. Tai, any final comments?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Does council wish to make a decision on this consent application? And I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that this report regarding consent application B08-2019 is prepared by the municipal planning consultant be received, and the Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to application B08-2019 subject to the following conditions. 1, that the severed parcel be merged on title with the adjoining property to the north and having roll number 140820602025601. 2, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped. And 3, that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Any further questions from council? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the final item on our statutory public meeting this evening is to request a decision of council for 3 proposed consents for the following applications, being files B09-2019, B10-2019, and B11-2019, the owner being 2003603 Ontario Corporation, McDonald Homes, the location being Part Lot 15, north of Main Street, Registered Plan 28, and Part 1 of Reference Plan 39R-13429, Princess Street. Mr. Tai, by what method and on what date was notice of this consent application given?
Notice of the consent applications were sent by first-class prepaid mail on February 22nd, 2019 to all property owners within 60 meters. Notice was also circulated to all the agencies and ministries as required under the Planning Act, as well as a sign being erected on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. And would you please explain the background regarding these consent applications?
The consent applications are requesting to sever 3 parcels of land in order to create 3 new residential lots. More specifically, approval of the application was served to divide the property into 4 lots, each being occupied by 1 unit of the existing or recently constructed townhouse development.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. Does the owner, applicant, or agent wish to make any comments this evening? Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Are there persons present who wish to make comments or have questions regarding this proposed consent application? There are none noted. Are there questions from members of council? There are none noted. Last chance, Mr. McDonald. You're good? Thank you, sir. Mr. Tai, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further.
Thank you. And does council wish to make a decision this evening on this consent? Yes. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that this report regarding consent applications B09-2019, B10-2019, and B11-2019 is prepared by the municipal planning consultants, be received, and that Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to applications B09-2019, B10-2019, and B11-2019, subject to the following condition. One, that the servicing easements as delineated on the draft reference plan be registered in favor of the respective property owner. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $1,500 be paid to the municipality. 3, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped. And 4, that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council move out of the statutory public meeting March 11th, 2019 at 7:15 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Now move into our planning and development reports, of which there are 5, I think. And there have been several pieces of communication floating around the interweb on at least 2 of the items this evening. So I'll ask if council wishes to, on all of them, we won't just go with one or the other, but on all of them, open the floor to the public if the public has points or discussion points. Councillor Tadman.
Yes, I think residents should always be entitled to give their opinions, so as long as we limit the amount of time for each.
So I think what we'll do is we'll treat it very much like we would citizens' comment. Everyone gets 3 minutes to a maximum of 10 on all the items, and if council's in agreement with that, I'll just accept that as by head nods. Is that okay with everybody? Are there any objections to that? Good. We'll move forward. Thank you. 6.1, Applewood Meadows Subdivision Phase 2, 8597685 Canada Incorporated. Mr. Tai, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through the chair, as of earlier this afternoon, I did receive from the developer the signed copy of the subdivision agreement, being that was a prerequisite, a condition prior to council considering any lifting of the holding provision. So with that document in hand, I'm able to remind council that on February 11th, council did issue final approval of this subdivision, and included in that approval was authorization given to the mayor and the clerk to sign a bylaw authorizing you to sign the subdivision agreement, and we now have that agreement before us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. I'll open the floor. Would council prefer I open the floor to the public or to council first? Public first? Public first? So is there anyone in the public gallery who wishes to make comment with regard to the Applewood Meadows Subdivision Phase 2, the applicant being 8597685 Canada Incorporated? There are none noted. So I will read the motion and then I'll open the floor to council. Do you want to carry on with the motion as it?
Well, it would be up to the seconder, but we have received the information that we didn't have before, so I'm willing to change it at this point. Who's my seconder on there?
Councillor Bateman.
Are you willing to, we do have the information that we didn't have before, because the motion that we have now, why don't you read it and
I'll
we'll
read the
discuss
motion. I'll read the entire motion as written, and then I'll explain the road we've gone down. So the motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council receives the report regarding the Applewood Meadows Subdivision Phase 2 as prepared by the municipal planning consultant, and that council proceed to enact a bylaw having the effect of removing the holding provision on lands pertaining to the Applewood Meadows subdivision, or that council defer enacting a bylaw having the effect of removing the holding provision on the lands pertaining to the Applewood Meadows subdivision in the event that the developer has not executed and returned the subdivision agreement together with the requisite letter of credit. So, not knowing that the subdivision agreement had been returned, the motion has crossed out the middle paragraph and the deferral is there. Did we receive the letter of credit as well, Mr. Tai?
Through the chair, because we already hold approximately 1.4 million, which includes all of the pre-servicing work in addition to some of the subdivision development. At the same time, we have received a request for a reduction in the letter of credit, so staff are satisfied that we can reconcile those monies following this evening, depending on council's decision.
Deputy Mayor.
So I'd be willing to scratch out the bottom paragraph and go to the middle one at this point, if you can still read it, because we have received the subdivision agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
You're okay with that, Councillor Bateman? So by way of friendly amendment, we are moving to enact the bylaw essentially, and I'll read the motion again for everyone's edification. Moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receives the report regarding the Applewood Meadows subdivision Phase 2 as prepared by the municipal planning consultant, and further that Council proceed to enact a bylaw having the effect of removing the holding provision on the lands pertaining to Applewood Meadows subdivision. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
I guess I would just like to follow up as well, that as long as all the conditions are met and the planner is happy with that, I'm certainly in favor of moving forward.
So we'll just double check.
Yes, our recommendation stands as staff.
Very well, thank you. Any further questions or comments from Council? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, through you, Mayor, through Ty. We received a stormwater management plan stating that the stormwater management pond for Phase 1 cannot sustain a 25-year rain event without overflowing. And so basically now we have a problem with our stormwater management plan that we've adopted. And we got a pond that's supposed to meet a 100-year rain event that can't sustain a 25-year rain event. That's talking with one of the neighbors there, has already overflowed twice in a couple of years. And I checked with the weather, we still haven't had a 25-year rain event. And you're telling me that staff wants to reduce the letter of credit, and I want to know who is responsible to bring that pond to a 100-year storm event, rain event, if it can't even meet a 25. In talking with the engineer that designed it, he said he designed it for a 50-year storm rain event. So still not 100.
Mr. Ty?
Through the chair, just to clarify, Applewood Meadows Phase 2 is a separate plan of subdivision. It is proposed to be serviced by its own stormwater pond. The Phase 1 Applewood Meadows actually drains into the Orchard Gate Pond, I believe, and those are separate developments, separate applications. I also took the liberty of requesting Brian Keane from Jewel Engineering to attend this evening for this portion of the meeting, being that he's our municipal peer review engineer, and I'm hoping that he can respond to any questions of council.
Thank you. So the only question I would have as a follow-up is to confirm that the developer has intent, and it is part of the subdivision agreement, to build a second pond for the purposes of collecting stormwater from the new portion of the subdivision.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of council? Carry on. Yep.
So is the letter of credit for Phase 1 or is it for Phase 2? Or are they both joined together?
Through the chair, they're separate letters of credit. There is some holdback on Applewood Meadows Phase 1, and as at this particular point in time, the municipality continues to hold all of the letter of credit for Phase 2.
And what's the value of the letter of credit for Phase 2, Mr. Ty?
1.4 million, I guess.
Thank you. 1.4 million was the answer to my question. And if that number changes, you'll let us know as you go through. Are there any other questions from members of council? Councilor LeBlanc.
Yes. Also, with how the It has to do with how the building goes on. With the subdivision agreement, like I talked to you, we've already met, I've already talked to you about this. Like you said, that the way that the builders are building their land, and I got pictures which I showed you, like they dump the sand half on the division, half on the road. So when the rain comes, it ends up by going into the stormwater management pond. You can see the silting. There's no silt fence, not in all of it. They're construction now, there's no silt fencing going on. There's no erosion control with any of the hay bales. And then when I was talking with the individual, they said, well, that's the fault of council or the town for not inspecting. So if we have a proper subdivision agreement with builders and with the developer, how do we keep the builder and the developer not spreading all their garbage and their stuff in the stormwater management pond? And again, how do we address the stormwater management pond that doesn't meet a 25-year drain event? And the thing is, I'm not going to convince you or anything, but you got to convince me to vote for this. And nobody's convinced me yet. Okay.
So I think there's two questions there. One is perhaps operational in nature, and I wonder if Mr. Castleman would like to tackle the how are we going to enforce the subdivision agreement question. I think I'm sort of pre-seeing your question. Is that just about how you asked it?
Yes.
There you are. Mr. Castleman, I'll ask if you would like to respond to the button at the side first, sir. There you go.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, the municipality enters into a contract anytime they execute a subdivision agreement. The contract has to be fulfilled. If it's not, it's incumbent upon the municipality to ensure that it is. That's why we hold back, or we have holding back of securities in place. At the time that developers request release of the holdback, we would go out in the normal course and do inspections to justify the holdback being reduced. So that's our check and balance at the end of the day.
Thank you. And at the end of the day, it is incumbent upon both parties of the contract to obey the wording of the contract, whether we're inspecting or not. It is not the fault of the municipality if we haven't gone out to inspect and someone is contravening the contract. That contravention is on the person who's contravening the contract. So we would expect all of our developers to obey the rules, whether we're able to get out and inspect on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. But I think that you perhaps noting it this evening may put a spotlight on the area of concern, Councillor LeBlanc. There was another question, though. You had a question with regard to the 25-year storm, and perhaps I'll go down here to get an answer to that.
Hi, it's Brian Keane with Jewel Engineering. I do peer review services for the municipality. I took a look at the plan you're referring to, the page 269 of your stormwater master plan. It indicates that Orchard Gate has sufficient capacity to contain the 50-year storm, but not the 100-year storm. Now, when this group studied that, they did go through into a wide range of different storm events, different durations. And when they did their study, they were looking at a 24-hour duration storm, so that's a pretty big storm. And that is different than what the consultants used for their analysis. I had a chance to take a look at their design brief. It has different vintages on it because it started in 2006, so that is getting to be an older pond. They used a method that's called the modified rational method to develop their pond storage volumes. And that method is not supported by our peer review team, so that you wouldn't use that now to design a large stormwater pond. You would use a hydrologic model, similar to a model that would have been used by your other consultants, not necessarily the same model. So their report says it does contain the 100-year, but my experience with the modified rational method is that it underestimates storage, sometimes significantly. So it would not be recommended for sizing program to size ponds. So there would certainly be a certainty what you're saying that pond may not contain the 100-year. Certainly your reviewers said the 50-year would be contained, so that's a pretty big storm, but the 100-year would not.
Thank
So
you,
when
Mr.
we
King.
design, through you, Mayor, so when we design ponds today, we use a 100-year storm, plus we use another event, I think it's 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour period or 4-hour period.
We use a 100-year storm to design ponds, but we use different duration storms. So a 1-hour 100-year storm has a very minor amount of rainfall, believe it or not. But a 24-hour duration storm is getting close to 117 millimeters. So it's a length of storm. There's something else that's looked at. It's called intensity. So what intensity over that period of time, and that is simulated in a hydrologic model using different Chicago storm, different distributions. So it's actually quite a range of storms are analyzed, but in this area we store the 100-year, but we pass through another event called a Timmins event. So that Timmins event, you don't store it, you just have to pass it through or receive it. A similar pond that we evaluated quite carefully was Tackaberry Ridge, and it was able to pass through the Timmins storm. It did show up here on the studies completed by your reviewers or your master plan developers, and the Tackaberry Ridge Pond did pass all their tests. So that was a more recent pond that has been developed and then peer reviewed.
Okay. Through you, Mayor.
Does this have to do with phase 2, or are we still asking questions about a pond that doesn't have anything to do with
phase 2? I can go into phase 2 quite nicely.
Well,
Mayor.
I don't want you to go to phase 2. You will go to phase 2 because that's the debate.
Okay.
We're not talking about the pond that's dealing with the existing subdivision.
Okay. Well, convince me.
You're more than welcome to talk to Public Works staff.
Go ahead.
Okay. Are there any other questions with regard to the motion? So the motion before us is to receive and proceed to enact a bylaw to remove the hold. I've already read the motion. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any further comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. It's not too late. Recorded vote can be called immediately following the vote. It's okay. Our next planning report is with regard to Rosalind Estates Subdivision Phase 2. Mr. Phillips, Subdivision 2015-001, Part Lot 2, Concession 2. Mr. Ty, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, subject to any questions council may have.
Thank you. I will open the floor to the public if they have any questions with regard to this subdivision. There are none noted. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The Council receives the report regarding the draft plan approval of Rosalind Estates Subdivision Phase 2, B, as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that Council proceed to pass the following resolution as prepared by the municipal solicitor. Being a resolution to amend the draft plan conditions dated December 7th, 2015 for 1751819 Ontario Incorporated, being file number sub 2015-001, whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton considers it desirable to amend the draft plan conditions dated December 7, 2015 for 1751819 Ontario Incorporated, being file number sub 2015-001. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton enact as follows. 1. That the condition contained in draft plan conditions dated December 7, 2015 for 1751819 Ontario Incorporated, being file number sub 2015-001, providing for a lapsing date, be amended by striking out, quote, the lapsing date for this draft approval is December 8th, 2018, unquote, and further that the draft plan conditions dated December 17th, 2015 for 1751819 Ontario Incorporated, being file number sub 2015-001, are hereby confirmed in all other respects. And 3, that a copy of this resolution be appended to the draft plan conditions for 1751819 Ontario Incorporated, being file number sub 2015-001. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Tadman.
Through you, Mayor, I'm pretty sure that I remember when we were discussing capital the other night that we're going to be doing that part of Sandford because it is a real mess. So we're doing the infrastructure there, right? So there's no point in doing any work on top until that's done. Is that correct?
I'm not sure we have the public works staff here to answer that question.
Does
but-
everybody else remember, though, that we were, okay,
Yeah.
so that's all I wanted to make sure of,
Yeah.
because it really is hard to get through there right now. It's quite bad.
And it's my understanding that the developer has contributed to the municipality to assist with that.
That's right, yeah, okay.
Completion, so. Any further comments or questions from council? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next report is with regard to the Clamp subdivision, Foxden and Deerfield. Mr. Ty, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing further unless council would benefit from just a brief overview. I was asked a few questions prior to the meeting, and I'd be pleased to go through the report at your direction.
So what I'll do is I'll first open the floor to the public if there's any questions from the public. Come on forward, sir. So if you could just push the button in front of you and state your name for the record.
My name is Michael Berlin. I'm from 34 Foxden Drive.
Welcome, Mr. Berlin.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think you have probably received an email copy that I had sent previously to Mr. Ostrander.
Mr. Berlin, could you bring the microphone
Yes,
closer to you? People in the back are having trouble here.
Okay. The reason I wanted to speak on this particular issue, the connecting road between Foxden and Deerfield, is because it is connected to another concern I have, which is the next matter on your agenda. Would you prefer I address them both at the same time?
No, we should only be addressing the issue around Foxden, Deerfield, and the Clamp subdivision.
Okay. I have a big issue with drainage on my property. I moved here to Brighton in June of last year. I am learning that there's been a long history of water problems, flooding problems on Foxden Drive, specifically on my side of Foxden Drive. On February the 24th, my basement was flooded. The water appeared to be coming overland. On Saturday, last Saturday, a company came in to start remediation work in the basement to inhibit mold and fungus. The floors have been ripped up. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, water infiltration began again, and I spent all day Sunday bailing water from the basement, trying to clear water from the backyard. I have 8 inches of ice currently in the backyard. Subsequent to my letter to you, Mr. Mayor, you did institute some action. 2 members of your staff came this morning to take a look, as you promised they would, along with somebody from Toby Developments, who also came along to take a look at the problem to see what could be done to help me specifically rather than the street in general. I should mention I'm not representing the street in this matter. I'm speaking on my own behalf at the moment. Subsequent to that early morning meeting today, somebody came back from Toby Developments this afternoon in an attempt, instructed by Stephen Toby, I understand, to help mitigate as much as possible any further infiltration of water from the Hamilton Woods onto my property, and to see how they can assist me in any way. I appreciate that as well. when I saw there seem to be two issues. One is water coming onto my property, and one is water not getting off of my property. A driveway was constructed. I understand, now this is from Ray Voskamp, the builder of the house, the original builder. There should be a swale down the side of my house, on the west side of my house, taking water away from the backyard to somewhere. I don't know where it's supposed to go to, but he did mention that the driveway that was built connecting a house on Ontario Street to Foxden Drive was built across the swale and was therefore blocking any water from escaping from my property. So the reason I want to speak to you on this particular item is because if a road is going to come in from Deerfield to Foxden Drive, it's going to come immediately opposite my house. So I'd like to bring to councillors' attention the potential for further blockage of the swale from my house, draining water from my backyard, and to try and ensure that there are adequate plans to remove any water or to continue the swale. One of the comments made this afternoon, this morning from members of your staff was, where is that water supposed to go to? If there's a swale, when it crosses Foxden Drive, where does that water go? It's going onto somebody else's property. So there was a grading plan when the houses were first built. Somewhere in council, I presume, there's still a copy of that grading plan. I haven't seen it, but I'm told by the builder that it does exist, and it should show where that stormwater is meant to discharge. So what I'd like is some assurance that Public Works or whoever is appropriate looks into that matter before approval is given for any road to go in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berlin.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make comment?
Brenda Richardson, 104 Raglan Street. Further to the comment that this resident in Foxden made in regards to the flooding of his property, a lot of you are well aware of how much Foxden was flooded after that property was clear-cutted. There is a drainage pipe that was put from one end of Foxden to the other. To the best of my knowledge, was installed by Toby Developments. There's a drain on Lance Street that we were told by upper management that all this water was draining into Harbor Point Pond. Now, if that drain that was installed is working properly, this gentleman's property should not be getting flooded, I would think. Now, when EOR did their stormwater management final draft, they also looked for copies, documentations for that drain that was put in, the pipe and the drain that was put on Lance Street. They could find no paperwork. I'd asked council before many times in regards to that. We were told that it was running into Harbor Point Pond. Harbor Point Pond is flooding. The water is not flowing, and if that pipe was actually draining the water into the pond, it would be a lot higher. There's pipes that are plugged. You can see them from the other side. I've gone down there many times in the summertime, and that drain on Lance is just like a toilet, nonstop flushing, and that was during the drought. And I think that drain should be looked into to see if it is actually working, who put it in, or it doesn't really matter now who put it in because it's there, but maybe it's frozen, I don't know, but there is a drain there. I actually have a picture of it before it was covered. David Fisher was there. He looked at it.
Mrs. Richardson?
Okay. Yeah.
We're gonna try to circle any comments back to.
I was just commenting on the flooding, and perhaps that is something that should be looked into, is that drain and that pipe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from members of the public?
My name is Bob Collins, 24 Foxden Drive. approximately 4 years ago, I was told that Monarch Drive was going in. The monies were returned to Clamp Development, and the mayor at that time and also the fire chief at that time said the road's going in and out to Ontario Street, fine and dandy. So my neighbor here, myself, have been keeping the grass cut for the last 4 years, expecting Toby Development to go through into his subdivision. Now I find out as of last week, Clamp owns it. I phoned up our builder, who was Clamp's son. He's not going to build there. I said, okay, so what's happening to his property? I was informed tonight that Clamp is putting a road from Deerfield over to Foxton at the far end of my street, and I hear Henderson owns the property, not Clamp. What's happening, please? You know, I'd like to find out who owns what's happening with the street itself. Are we going to go around to Deerfield, or are we going to go up into Cardinal and out to Ontario Street?
So if this motion passes tonight, the intention would be to stop up what is being referred to as Monarch, and Foxden and Deerfield would circle around to one another for the purposes of accessing those properties that are to the east side of Ontario Street, which you've identified as being owned by Henderson. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I have a follow-up question. The last planner, Stephen
Ashton,
and the past mayor came out to 34 Foxton, and they allowed this gentleman or whoever owned the house on Ontario Street to put a driveway to his backyard off of our street on Foxton, which it's a solid driveway. It's gravel all the way down, which is blocking his swale now. But so Stephen Ashton and the mayor said, I'm on a corner lot, thinking Monarch was still going through, I could put a driveway in my backyard. And so my neighbor across from me can put there. Now we're going to have a house in there. Now how am I supposed to get to my backyard if I put a driveway in? Just a question. Something that you were told 2 years ago or a year ago that we can put a driveway in. And as of Thursday when I got this notification, no idea what's happening. Please enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I think I would look to the planner to help with some enlightenment, if he can.
Thank you, Your Worship. The matter of the Clamp subdivision has been going on between the developer and the municipality for some considerable time. The essence is that although the subdivision has been developed, the southern stub of what would be the extension of Monarch below Toby Developments Hamilton Woods West was never deeded to the municipality. So there has been ongoing, I guess, legal exchanges in terms of whether or not the municipality might be able to acquire that property. Connected with that is that the municipality continues to withhold certain financial securities pertaining to the Clamp subdivision Phase 3. It's been determined through engineering and legal that the municipality withholding those financial securities is not materially related to the issue with the southern portion of what would be the extension of Monarch. So in the meantime, the municipality has received a proposal which, according to the plan attached to the planning report, would propose to connect at the western end of Deerfield and Foxden in order to provide connectivity, and the eastern part of the adjacent property, which otherwise extends all the way out to Ontario, would then be developed on that connecting street, which would become a municipal street. So municipal staff have looked at this alternative, and municipal staff prefer the connection at the western end of Foxden and Deerfield as opposed to the stub connection of Monarch, simply to allow a superior flow of traffic. When I received the request from Toby Developments for a red line revision, they have draft plan approval on Hamilton Woods subdivision west and east, but subdivision west. I turned to the municipality's peer review engineer to confirm if and whether the Monarch did not proceed as a street extension to the south, whether or not that has any type of implications, both positive or negative, on the prevailing stormwater management issues. Because Toby Developments has been going on for a few years now through different engineering firms attempting to resolve stormwater management issues related to Hamilton Woods west and east. And that work is ongoing. Mr. Keane has been involved with the developers, engineers, as well as Lower Trent. The information I've received is that should council dispense with the connection of Monarch Street and approve the red line revision, it would have no implication on any current drainage issues, nor would it create any new ones.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Are there any other questions or comments from the public?
Cheryl Langevin, 6 Cove Crescent. I've been looking over this plan where the potential for Monarch to go through, and I see that Foxden has only one in and out, and to me it's only, I think, moral to combine the street and have Monarch come right through between Cardinal and Foxden, because in a case of emergency, those people only have one way out. This way, they can turn left and go into Ontario Street. Otherwise, they have no area to get out in any case of emergency. And then if Clamp or Henderson builds down at the other end, there's another 8 or 9 homes added to that juncture, which makes that street very traffic prone. Most people have 2 vehicles. A lot of those homes will only have one garage, so you'll have a garage, you'll have a car out in the driveway, and that just makes for a lot more traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Langevin. Any other comments from members of the public with regard to the Clamp issue? And none noted. So I'll read the motion. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receives the report regarding the Clamp subdivision as prepared by the municipal planning consultant, and that Council directs staff to suspend any further efforts in respect of acquiring Block 36 in Clamp subdivision for the purpose of a street connection. Are there any questions or comments from members of Council? Mr. Ty, have we assumed the Clamp subdivision?
That's a very good question, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I have not acquired an answer to that question yet. That would be something that, if it had not yet been assumed, there would then be an exercise involving that assumption, deficiencies and whatnot. A report would then be brought to Council together with a bylaw to assume it prior to any release of any letter of credit.
Madam Clerk?
I believe there was something that was brought to council. I can look that up for you in last year from Lucas Kelly about the Clamp subdivision. I can look that up for you.
Okay.
No, not
That
right now, but
doesn't answer the question.
Right now,
Doesn't answer the question. It's okay, Mr. Collins. We'll get there. Councillor Tadman.
I drove there this afternoon, and I'm almost positive that I saw a sign that it's unassumed.
It's unassumed? Well, sometimes those signs don't come down for a long time, as we discovered in another subdivision.
Yeah, but usually once we assume something, we take them down in that case.
I asked that question only with regard to the question of drainage concerns on the private property. If the subdivision is not assumed, then the responsibility for drainage remains the responsibility of the developer, not of the municipality, because the municipality has not assumed any responsibility for roads or drainage in the subdivision. So that was the only reason I was asking that question. I've closed it to the public, Mr. Collins. I'm sorry. Councillor Bateman?
For the matter of this clamp issue we're talking about, should we wait until we have that information so we make a decision based on all the information?
That would be entirely up to council. So I'm prepared to call the vote unless I hear something else from members of council. Councillor Tadman?
Well, since some councillors are new to this game, if you want to defer it for any reason, then there's no more debate, and we defer it till whenever.
But until such time as a motion for deferral is on the floor, we're still open for debate. Councillor Anderson?
I'd like to agree with Councillor Bateman. I think I am new on council too, but I think there's a lot of information we don't have. And I think it's great that we've got a lot of information from the public tonight too. So I'd like to absorb that a little bit and make a decision later. Defer, please.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to make a quick comment. The only information I don't have is I want to make sure that, nobody seems to know whether we've assumed it or not.
Right.
So, I would like to know that.
My
before.
point too. Yeah.
So there's a motion moved by Councillor Anderson that the item be deferred to the next planning meeting. Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Bateman. And there's no discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? The deferral is carried. Our next planning report is with regard to Hamilton Woods subdivision. Thank you. Gordon Toby Developments, Part Lot 15, Registered Plan 28, being Part Lot 2, Concession 1. Mr. Tai, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Thank you, Your Worship. In light of Council's decision with respect to the previous proposal, the application to discontinue the pursuit of the Monarch extension, from staff perspective, it would be appropriate for Council to defer this item as well.
Does Council agree that we should defer this as well to the next planning meeting? It does go hand in hand with the last item. So could I have a motion to defer, please? Councillor Anderson, seconded.
I'll second that
Councillor
motion.
Rowley.
Sure.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And our final planning report is with regard to consent application B08 2018, thank you, and applications to amend zoning bylaw 140 2002 as amended Z03 2018, 240 Presqu'île Parkway. Mr. Tai, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further.
Thank you. As with the other reports, I will open the floor to the public for any comments. Does anyone have any comment with regard to this application? There are none noted. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council receives the report regarding consent application B08 2018 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z03 2018 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to consent application B08 2018, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the severed and retained lands being the subject of application B08 2018 be rezoned to the satisfaction of the Municipality of Brighton. 2, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the deed being stamped. 3, that the 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey and the appropriate deed be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. And further, that Council enacts a bylaw to rezone certain lands located in Part Lots 4 and 5, broken front concession from highway commercial, future development, and urban residential 1 exception, to environmental protection zone. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. There's no unfinished business. There are no bylaws. I will open the floor to question periods. Questions are to be asked with regard to the items on the agenda. Any members of the public with questions? There are none noted. And we will take a 10-minute recess before proceeding into closed session. So it is 12 minutes past 8, and I am calling the meeting back to order. And I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council moves into closed session March 11th, 2019 at 8:12 p.m. pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, subsection 239 2B. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, and I have put those names there, so if either of you object, say so. The council directs staff to prepare a service agreement with the Brighton District Chamber of Commerce, Brighton Crammy Chamber of Commerce, to work with the Applefest Committee. Is that clear enough? Do we need any other words around that? You understand? Do you need the amount? We all understand what the amount is. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rowley, you're okay with moving and seconding it? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. And just before I read the confirmatory bylaw motion, that's 11 to 3 o'clock for that public skate on Saturday, right? I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council gives the bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on March 11th, 2019. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that the March 11th, 2019 Council Planning meeting adjourn at 8:34 p.m. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.